Hello everyone and welcome to Jessica's Kitchen. I am Jessica Tiarina and this is Jessica's Kitchen, tips, tricks, and hacks. Thank you for joining me. Today is Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. We're getting through it, the day before Tuesday, the day after Tuesday, the day before Thursday, halfway to the weekend. It's almost Friday. Welcome. It is beautiful outside, gorgeous, sunny. I can't wait to get out there. I've got some planters that I want to paint, something to do, get outside. Ground is still a little frozen, so I can't really dig weeds and do the garden yet. So working on that in a couple weeks, but wanted to welcome you again to Jessica's Kitchen, tips, tricks, and hacks. This is going to be segment 3 of the Marinade segment. So the first one was Mexican and Southeast Asian. And the second one was Greek and Italian. And today is going to be an Indian curry marinade and a Jamaican jerk Caribbean marinade. So with that, I just want to quickly go over what that marinade magic is. And the formula for that is a simple 1 part acid to about 3 parts oil, plus some seasonings or some flavorings of something in general, whether that's herbs or spices or whatever that is. It's, a no-fail marinade of any kind. And your acids are going to be things like vinegars and wine, beer, buttermilk, juices, rum, for example, for a liquor if you want. For this Caribbean Jamaican jerk, it would be cool to add just a shot of that if you want, if you have it. Give it a little bit of a sweetness. The enzymes could possibly be something like a yogurt. We used a Greek yogurt a couple days ago for the Greek marinade. And your fat's going to be things like extra virgin olive oil or oil of some kind, hot chili oil, who knows. We used a garlic infused oil from Grand Fete the other day. Sesame oil, mayo is another type of fat, buttermilk again, and almond oil, any kind of nut-based oils. Your seasonings, anything like I said, from herbs and spices, garlic, onion, shallots, ginger, zest. You know how I love me some zest. And today, most importantly, we're going to be using a maple syrup in place of the sugars for both of these recipes. Now, I visited the Iron Shoe Farms in Princeton, Minnesota, and they have tapped their maple trees for the first time in over 80 years. And so I have one of their inaugural bottles of their maple syrup. It is beautiful. It is great in color. You guys can see that. Nice caramel golden color. Trying to get the sun to hit that a little bit, but it's very good. I cannot wait to put it in these recipes to see what it turns out to be like. So with that kind of burnt caramel color, I'm hoping that's the kind of flavor it's going to give these recipes as well, especially that Jamaican jerk Caribbean marinade that we're going to do today. So just trying to make this quick for you guys. Again, this is segment 3 of the marinades. Hey, Nicole. And for the marinade magic formula, 1 part acid, 3 parts oil to some seasonings, spices, herbs, and flavorings of any kind, from herbs and salts and peppers and garlics, anything like that, 2 syrups. So today we're going to start with the Indian curry marinade. And this, again, all the ones that I'm showing you guys here, same with the recipes on my website, are going to be made for about 1 pound of meat or meat substitute or vegetables. It'll go a little bit further with the vegetables, but just consider it that. And that's usually about, 2 small boneless skinless pork chops, boneless, skinless thighs, legs, breasts, whatever it is of a chicken. You can even do this with steak. But the Jamaican jerk Caribbean marinade is really good with chicken of any kind, poultry, game, bird, that fun stuff. Indian curry, anything. I've done it with baked tofu, tempeh, lots of great things, just vegetables in general. So the Indian curry marinade is going to have 1 cup of coconut milk, some lime juice, cilantro, garlic, turmeric. Give it a little kick with some cayenne, some freshly grated ginger, and a little bit of maple syrup, which I'm using from Iron Farm today, and then a teaspoon of my garam masala spice blend. As well as today I'm going to add a little bit of salt to this recipe, just because there isn't a ton of acid in this recipe. We're only using the juice of a half of a lime. And if I was using a little bit more, I would need less to no salt. But since it's not enough to really penetrate vegetables or meat as much as the other acid, which is that 1 to 3 part, I'm going to add a little bit of salt to kind of get in there a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one in a mason jar. But again, you can go ahead and put it in a food processor if you want. Blend all those flavors up. I'm going to use the food processor for the Jamaican jerk one because that one's got a lot of hot peppers and whole ingredients in there as well. So for this, I'm just going to dice things up real fine and throw it in a mason jar. Shake it up, put it in the fridge. It'll hold for about a week before you have to use it. Maybe less than that for things like the Greek marinade where it had the yogurt in there, and we turned that kind of into a sour milk or a buttermilk using the lemon juice and the vinegar. Today for the Indian curry marinade, we're going to do about 1 cup of coconut milk. And let's see. You always have to be careful with coconut milk or coconut cream that fatty part of the coconut, that solid part's going to be on the top. So I'm going to just use most of the liquid in here. And I'm going to throw in a little bit of that fat there. Just be very careful when you stick a spatula or fork in there because it's going to squirt back up at you if you're not careful. Put that over here. All right, so they're going to do 1 cup of coconut milk, the juice of half a lime. And got that right here. Trusty juicer here. These are kind of small limes, so I'm going to take a peek at how much juice actually gets in there and see if I need any more. I'm going to go ahead and do just a little bit more. These are real tiny limes. Use your judgment. Follow the recipe. If you're not sure, just follow it on par and then just take a quick taste if you want after. But if you're unsure, it's not going to hurt you to put a little bit more acid in there. Also go into my compost. And then we're going to add a tablespoon of fresh cilantro. Now, I did talk to you guys yesterday about the ratio between dried versus fresh, and that's typically a 3 to 1. There's 3 teaspoons for every tablespoon, so you're going to use, the fresh is much less potent than the dried, so you're going to use 1 tablespoon of dried to 3 teaspoons of fresh. Today, I'm going to use a tablespoon of fresh, so you'd really actually want a lot more of the dried if you're going to do that. So we'll do about a tablespoon of the fresh cilantro, and I did pull most of the stems off of this, but you don't have to if you're going to go ahead and throw it in a food processor or a blender just to get that flavor in there. And use less if you choose to. If you have someone in the family who's got that enzyme where it tastes like soap, use less cilantro or none at all. That's fine. Again, it's up to you how you want to make your recipes. These are just guidelines that I give you. Thanks again, you guys, for being understanding that I had to change the time today. I messed up my schedule. So if you missed it, that's okay. You get to see it later on as I do record these all and put them on my Facebook page as well as on my Instagram page. If you guys have noticed, I've been putting them up there lately. Not everybody has Facebook, so direct people there if they can't hop on Facebook, or my website as well, jessicatiarina.com. I do upload all of the videos to that page as well, onto the actual page called Jessica's Kitchen Tips, Tricks, and Hacks. So those are all on there, all the last 3 episodes of these. And this is the third episode of, or the last 2, this is the third episode of the Marinades one. The first one was the Mexican and the Southeast Asian, and 2 days ago it was Greek and Italian, and today we're doing Indian curry and Jamaican jerk Caribbean marinade. So for the Indian curry, we've got here a mason jar with 1 cup of coconut milk, the juice of half a lime, a tablespoon of fresh cilantro, 2 garlic cloves sliced. This is a really big garlic clove. And I'm going to show you what that kind of means, because that's all relative to what kind of garlic bulbs you have. But just as an example, I have 2 garlic cloves here, and I'm going to show you the difference between their sizes. So it's kind of up to you to make that judgment call on how much you actually use. Here's 2 garlic cloves. Now, one's really big and one's really tiny. I'm going to call that even. I'm going to just quickly slice those up. Just making sure that flavor gets out of there a little bit. Toss that into the jar. All right, so then we're going to add some turmeric, some cayenne, and some fresh grated ginger. So I'm going to add half a teaspoon of turmeric. Turmeric's going to give that nice golden yellow color. You don't want to add too much. Turmeric is a very potent flavor. If you put too much, it can taste floral and chalky. That doesn't sound very appetizing, and it's not typically. Usually it's found in some curries along with curry powders, which are, depending on the type of curry, lots of chili peppers or turmeric or garlic, red chilies, green chilies, whatever that chili type must be, like the red curry, green curry, yellow curry, massaman curry. All have different types of chilies. The yellow curry is going to be primarily turmeric, but it's going to have a lot of other things in there to get rid of that kind of chalky flavor and bring out a really beautiful flavor in a lot of those yellow curries that we love. Potato curry with chickpeas and yellow, oh, it's so good. All right, so we add the turmeric. We're going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne. I'm actually going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of cayenne because I really like my curry to be pretty spicy. But just be careful with that. If you want more or less, that's totally up to you. Like I always say, your preference, your flavor profile, that whatever you want. And then we're going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of freshly grated ginger. So I've got a big knob of ginger here, pretty big. That's about, 3.5 inches. I'm just going to cut off a little knob at the end. And then I'm going to grab my favorite tool, one of my favorite tools, which is the zester. And I'm just going to take it skin on. I'm not even going to skin it. And I'm just going to put in about a 1/2 teaspoon of fresh grated ginger in there. Now that's going to bring some sweetness and some earthy flavors to this. And it's going to kind of combat that chalky flavor of the turmeric a little bit. It's going to, those two together really marry very nicely and complement each other really well. That really pungent, sour flavor of the garlic, or of the ginger, really complements the kind of dry earth tone chalky of the curry as well. So we'll add that in there. And then this is where we're going to add in, so on my original recipe, I had 1 teaspoon of brown sugar, or regular sugar. I'm going to use 1 teaspoon of the Iron Shoe Farms maple syrup. Like I said, since I was going to use brown sugar, maple syrup is a really good substitute. Oh, it smells so caramely. Very wonderful here. So I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of the Iron Shoe Farms maple syrup. And then I'm going to put a little teaspoon in here, and I'm going to eat it. Oh yeah, that is so good. Oh my gosh. Wonderful. It's actually not, this is going to sound strange, not as sugary as you would think it would be. It's very light, but it's kind of, you get that very little burnt flavor of like a burnt sugar kind of. So almost like a burnt sugar candy on a dessert. That's kind of what it tastes like. Almost a brittle, but not quite. It's beautiful in flavor. Very nice and well-rounded. So good job, Carla and Iron Shoe Farms. You guys did a good job tapping those maple syrup trees. Hi, Nicole. Patty, welcome. Thanks so much, you guys, for hopping on. Again, this is segment 3 of the marinades for this week. Marinade magic formula, 1 part acid, 3 parts oil, plus seasonings and flavorings of any kind. Today we're going to be doing Indian curry and Jamaican jerk. We're halfway through the Indian curry now. We've got coconut milk, juice of a lime, fresh cilantro, ginger, garlic, turmeric, cayenne, and maple syrup in place of brown sugar today. We're using Iron Shoe Farms maple syrup. And then 1 teaspoon of my garam masala spice blend. Again, not on sale quite yet, but if you guys get my newsletter or you get my blog, you'll know that Iron Shoe Farms is actually going to sell my spices on their pantry. So that's really cool. Coming up soon. I have to get them the information, and then I will be actually transforming my website in the next week here into a place where you can shop for my spices. So I will keep you posted and let you know when that happens. All right, so the garam masala is in there. And then, like I said, there's not a ton of acid in this one, like all the rest of the marinades I've been showing you. So I am going to add a little bit of kosher salt to this. Oops. So I'm going to add about, I don't know, a 1/2 teaspoon to a teaspoon maybe. Not too much. Again, if I'm going to use it on something like chicken, I don't want that chicken to dry out too much. And I'm going to put that in. The method for all of these recipes online says that you add all the ingredients to a jar with a tight-fitted lid and shake it until it's well combined and the oil and acid are emulsified. Again, you get that brown gravy color when it is emulsified. Those molecules and those proteins can mix so well together that they turn into one molecule. You can also pulse it in a food processor. So that's good to go. Kind of a big jar. I should have made like a quadruple batch. But this is a much more liquid marinade than we have been using in the past. That's okay. It's because of the coconut milk and the fat in there. If you were to take a lot more of that fat, like I said, from that coconut milk, or you were to use a coconut cream, like here's a big chunk of coconut fat from the top and most of it was liquid. I used most of the liquid today, but I could have certainly used coconut cream and a lot more of that fat if I wanted. And if I'm going to use it in a food processor, it's going to whip it like a whipped cream, and this marinade would not be as in liquid form. It would be a little bit more thick, kind of like a mousse type almost, and that's okay too. Nothing wrong with that at all. Now I do want to give you one quick tip and a caveat. When you guys are making a marinade, if you choose to keep some for topping your meat or your chicken or your vegetables at the end, make sure you do that right before you marinate the proteins. You want to keep maybe an eighth of a cup on the side for maybe additional seasoning after you've cooked it, but you don't want to use the same marinade that the meat was sitting in, because that is raw meat and you don't want to eat that, clearly, especially if it's chicken or pork. You can certainly turn that into a demi-glace sauce of some sort if you put it on high heat for about 15 minutes and boil that down. That way you're getting rid of the raw protein in there, the meat of the chicken or the pork, and you can use that as a sauce. But I highly recommend you just pull out some beforehand, put it back in the fridge, and then once it's all cooked, drizzle it on top. Do not use the same that you marinated it in, please. Unless it's vegetables, then it's fine. So I'm going to stick that in the fridge, and that's going to be used for later. So now we're going to move on to the Jamaican Jerk Caribbean Marinade. Now, I did a Jamaican class a few months back at the Abundant Kitchen, and it was a really fun class. I went to Jamaica. It was in Negril last December over the holiday with my family, and I had previously been there in like 2006 as well on a cruise. And so I've been to Jamaica twice, and I love it there. It's beautiful. It's warm. The water's great. I was really sick when I was there last December, so I don't think I enjoyed it as much as I could have, but I had a very warm welcome when I got there. My boyfriend actually hired a guy to drive us around to some of the smaller towns on the way to Negril from Montego Bay, where I flew in. And he picked up some of the best street food I have ever had in my life and some really crazy fruits that I've never seen before. It was a really cool time. I'll never forget it. But I fell in love with the Jamaican jerk sauce that they had there on the beach at the resort that we were staying at. And so I've been trying to replicate that the last year or so here, trying to figure out how to make it the best it can be. And a lot of the Jamaican jerk sauces are very green. And I found out that the way that they make it green is by putting a lot more green onion in there. So the jerk sauce that I used in my class did not have a ton of green onion in there, so it was more of like a brown color. But if I wanted to spruce that up and bring it a little bit more green color for spring, I would just add a whole bunch more of green onion. Now for this recipe, it calls for both the green and the white part of the onion as well. I'm going to put it into a food processor today because I really want to pulse those flavors together. There's quite a few in here. It's probably the longest ingredient list that we've had for all these marinades, but totally worth it. Again, it's going to be very spicy, so tone it down to your profile, to your preference. Use, you know, if you really want to use like crushed red pepper flakes instead, go ahead and do that. Use about a teaspoon of that. You're not really even going to taste the spice at that point, but it'll give a little flavor. I did not have Scotch bonnets or habaneros, and I wasn't about to go to the grocery store to buy them, so I'm going to use some Thai red chilies. These are extremely spicy. So I'm going to use about 4 of them for this small batch just to see how hot I can get this. I can always tone it down a little bit later, but I'm going to throw about 4 of them in there. I have a leftover bit of jalapeno as well in here. Maybe I'll just use 3. Getting a little scared. And I want everybody to enjoy this. And so I could have used jalapeno as well. I had some left over from the recipe I did a couple days ago. But instead I'm going to use the Thai red chilies. Very hot, much sweeter, but very hot. So those are going to call for 1. I'm just going to use 3 small of the chilies. 2 teaspoons of fresh thyme. So I'm going to throw that in there, stems and all. They were getting a little brown, needed to be used quickly. That's okay. We're just going to pulverize them. It's all right. That doesn't have to be the most pretty, beautiful looking bunch of thyme that you've ever seen. So they're a little brown, but they're not slimy and they don't smell rancid. So that's the perfect time to use them for this or for a stock or something like that. And then we're gonna do 2 teaspoons of ground allspice. So I did not have ground allspice, but I have, the Jamaicans call these pimentos. And no, not the red pimentos you find in a green olive. This is actually pimento spice. It's a pimento berry, and these are found on bushes. And when they're dried, we call them allspice once it's ground as well. So I'm gonna put about, it says calls for 2 teaspoons of ground allspice. I'm gonna put a good full teaspoon of allspice of berries in here. All right, we'll see how that goes. I'll be able to tell once it's all ground out how much that is smelling in there. Hi Megan, welcome. Thanks for joining in. Talking about marinades. I'm on the second marinade now, the Jamaican Jerk Caribbean marinade. We just finished up with the Indian curry, the quick marinade magic method of 1 part acid, 3 parts oil to a bunch of seasonings and spices. No fail marinade. So now for the Jamaican one, we've got instead of the sliced Scotch bonnets, which I have on the recipe, I have some Thai red chilies. You can also use jalapeno or red pepper flakes, whatever you want. I've got 2 teaspoons of fresh thyme, 1 teaspoon of whole allspice or pimento berries, which will then be ground up in my food processor. 2 cloves of garlic. It says 2 cloves chopped, but I'm just going to put the whole ones in there since I'm actually just putting them in the processor. Got 1 in there, and I've got 2 in there, and they're pretty large, like I said before. All right, so I've got the garlic cloves in there, and then we're going to do a half of a medium onion. So this is all leftover veggies that I had. So I've got onions left over from whatever. I did a bunch of grilling last night. I actually grilled my boneless pork chops with the 2 marinades that we made the day before, which were the Greek and the Italian. Oh man, I found out that the Italian one, I think because I used the cherry balsamic, I didn't have enough acid in there, and I could have used a little bit more salt. And I did modify the recipe online to say that as well, just to let you guys know. I did change it up a little bit. You know, it's all about trial and error. So I could have put a little more balsamic in there or a little bit of salt. But the Greek one, phenomenal. I grilled it with the lemon slices on top. It was so good. We actually used the leftover that I put aside, the Greek marinade, as a dressing for the vegetables that I grilled as well. So that was phenomenal. Hi Rachel, welcome. We're about halfway through the Jamaican Jerk Caribbean marinade now. I know most of you have seen the last 2 segments of these, but the marinade magic is the 1 part acid to 3 parts oil to seasonings or flavorings of some sort. So with the Jamaican Caribbean Jerk marinade, we've got some, instead of the Scotch bonnets, we did Thai red chilies. We've got 2 teaspoons fresh thyme, 2 teaspoons ground allspice, 2 cloves of garlic. I just threw them in there, didn't chop them. Half of a medium onion. I just put it into like tablespoon-sized chunks. 1 teaspoon of Irish Shoe Farms maple syrup. So if you don't have that, my original recipe called for brown sugar. But because I visited the farm and I'm going to use her syrup, it's phenomenal. We're going to use 1 teaspoon of the Iron Shoe Farms maple syrup here. Just gives it a little bit of that sugar bump that you need, a little bit of that caramel flavor that we're going to want in there. The sugar is also going to come from the orange that we're going to use later as well. It's the Iron Shoe Farms maple syrup. It's very good. First time they tapped their trees in over 80 years. So that's kind of a fun thing for them to have done. And then we're going to add a teaspoon of fresh ground black pepper. So I'm just going to grind my black pepper in there, you know, give or take, teaspoon. Put that over here. And then we're going to do a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, a teaspoon of nutmeg. So instead of ground cinnamon, you know me and my zesting abilities, I'm going to go ahead and just zest some cinnamon in there. Now because of the denseness of the bark of this cinnamon, you can also use a nutmeg grater. That might get it done a little bit more quickly, but because it's also fresh, I'm going to use just a little bit, and fresh meaning freshly grated, not fresh cinnamon bark, but that's pretty good in there. Leave that for another day. All right, and then a little bit of nutmeg. Again, I have a whole cloves of nutmeg, so I'm going to go ahead and grate a little bit of nutmeg and go ahead and just use ground. That's totally fine. This is all I had, and I wasn't about to go spend money on something that I already have with just a little extra work needed. So not a big deal. So now, you might not have known this, but the flavor that the nutmeg and the cinnamon give is what gives the Jamaican jerk that really potent flavor a lot of the times that you don't realize. Along with those pimento berries or the allspice. So now there's nutmeg, fresh ground, and fresh grated nutmeg and fresh grated cinnamon in there as well. So now we're going to do a teaspoon of fresh grated or sliced ginger. Again, we're not going to grate it because it's just going to go in the food processor. Teaspoon is, you know, approximately two large chunks in there. Put that in there, save the rest for later. For something else later on. Let me remind me, I'll tell you guys what I've been doing with some of the leftover citrus that I've had from these recipes. It's a pretty cool idea, actually. A half a cup of olive oil, plus or minus. So I think that was more, not quite a half a cup, so we'll add just a little bit more. Been using a lot of oil these days. There we go, a half a cup of oil there. A quarter cup of Maggi sauce, which is a traditional Jamaican soy sauce type. It is gluten-free, but it is something I don't currently have in my household right now, so I'm just going to substitute that with soy sauce anyways. So this is where a lot of that flavor is going to come in again with that lack of acid. We're putting a little acid in there with the juice of a lime, and a little bit of orange juice and some orange zest. We are going to add that soy in there as well, so it'll be pretty salty, which is okay. Nothing wrong. Nothing wrong with a little extra salt in your diet. If you're gluten-free, you can also use tamari in place of the soy. Then juice of 1 lime. Again, these limes were really small, but that's okay. Go ahead and put that in there. If you guys were watching a couple days ago, I kind of reiterate all the time when using a juicer how to actually best use the juicer. And that is, some people think that you put the lime in like this, where the dome is facing up, but instead you put it where the flesh is facing up, okay? And then you squeeze. Or no, sorry, I just totally made a mistake. Opposite. It seems as though it fits perfectly if you have the flesh side up. And does it work? Absolutely. You're going to get juice out of it. But to get the most juice out of it, you're going to put it in where it's upside down. And it's actually much easier to squeeze in there too, which is kind of silly, but it works. And those were nice limes. I got lots of juice out of those. All right, so then a quarter cup of orange juice, or juice of half an orange, clearly. Again, I had problems trying to use this in my juicer because it's too big. It doesn't fit, but I tried it anyways, and I tried to use it the back way the other day, and it squirted everywhere. So just going to use a little bit of elbow grease in this and squeeze in the juice of half this orange. To help get that flesh away from that skin on the orange and to get more juice out of here, or for any citrus for that matter, there's a couple things you can do. You could take this orange and you just roll it along the table, the countertop, cutting board, and you just loosen that flesh up a little. That will provide you a little bit more juice that's going to come out when you do that. Hi, Steve. Welcome. Thank you. Keeping them whole like that, do they stay fresher? Megan, I got your question. Which one are you talking about? Keeping what whole? Like the cinnamon and the nutmeg? Yes, they do stay a lot longer if that's what you're referring to. Patty, you said if you use fresh, do you use more or less? Yes, and I did talk about this in both other episodes as well. So with herbs, so the fresh is going to be actually less potent than the dry. So it's the same marinade magic formula, a 1 to 3. So you're going to use 3 times more fresh than you would dry. So 3 teaspoons equals 1 tablespoon. And that's kind of how you figure that out. So if I'm using 1 teaspoon of fresh, I'm going to use 1 tablespoon, or if I'm going to use 1 tablespoon of fresh, I will use 3 teaspoons of dried. If that makes sense. Hopefully that made sense. Am I making sense? I don't know. We'll figure it out. I'm sure I'll listen back to this and go, what in the heck was she talking about? But it is a 3-to-1 ratio, and the dry is more potent than the fresh. So for the Jamaican Jerk Caribbean marinade, we've got, instead of the sliced Scotch bonnets, which the recipe calls for, I did use Thai red chilies because that is what I had. You can use jalapenos, you can use crushed red pepper, whatever you choose. I've got 2 teaspoons of fresh thyme, 2 teaspoons of allspice, 2 cloves of garlic, half a medium onion, a teaspoon of the Iron Shoe Farms maple syrup made here right in Princeton, Minnesota. Thank you, Carla. A teaspoon of fresh ground black pepper, a teaspoon of fresh ground cinnamon, a teaspoon of ground nutmeg, teaspoon of freshly, I just put a teaspoon of sliced ginger in there, half a cup of olive oil, 1/4 cup of soy sauce. You can substitute that with tamari if you're gluten-free. The recipe calls for Maggi sauce, which is a Jamaican soy type sauce. Juice of 1 lime, 1/4 cup of juice of an orange, 1/4 cup of white vinegar, which I have right here. Funny story is I didn't have any white vinegar in my spice rack or in my oil and vinegar rack last night when I was putting this together, and I thought that I was gonna have to go out, and I was like, no way, I'm gonna use something else. I'll use champagne vinegar or something. And I was doing laundry, and there's a gigantic jug of distilled white vinegar in my laundry closet, and so I was like, oh yeah, perfect. So, oh hey Joan, thanks. 1 teaspoon of dried herbs equals 1 tablespoon fresh herbs. Perfect. Thank you for that. So I got a 1/4 cup of the vinegar. And then we've got a 1/4 cup of green onion, both green and white parts. So this is what I had mentioned to you guys earlier, that my jerk sauce that I used for my Jamaican class, the jerk marinade sauce that I have online that isn't part of this marinades class, doesn't call for a lot of the green onion, but that's what makes it that green color. It actually gives it a little bit more thickness. So I'm just going to use about a large bunch of green onion, and it's going to be the white and the green part as well. Cut off those root ends, and where are these root ends going to go, guys? They're going to go in my bag in my freezer for when I do my vegetable broth. I don't waste nearly anything in my kitchen if I can help it. And on that note, I wanted to let you guys know that with those leftover half oranges, half lemons, half limes that I have, I made a quick simple syrup the other day. And so I just took an orange, a lemon, and a lime, half of them, and I squeezed as much juice out of those as I could, and then I zested all of them, and I put them in a saucepan with a cup of water and a half a cup of sugar, and I let those reduce into a really thick syrup. And this is what I got. There you go. So now it's a flavored, oh, I threw in some ginger. So it's like a ginger citrus simple syrup. And this can be used in iced tea. It can be used as added sugar syrup to cupcakes and pastries. It can be used with pancakes as a substitute for syrup, whatever. There's lots of different ways you can use a simple syrup. One of my favorites is with iced tea, because when you use crystallized sugar, it doesn't always melt or dissolve, and I'm not a huge fan of big chunky bits on the bottom of my iced tea, but some people are. So we're going to quickly pulse this. Ooh, whoa. We're going to just do that real quick. So I have this Cuisinart Mini Prep. It's a teeny tiny food processor called a Mini Prep. And I absolutely love it. I got it for a birthday gift from my brother, Jake, 1 year. And it is so cool because it is both ways. So it's got a chop setting and a grind setting, and that's it. And the grind setting goes clockwise, and the chop setting goes counterclockwise. So it's really great and really helps you pulverize everything in just the greatest fashion. All right, guys. So like I said, now all that fat and acid is emulsified. It's going to be much chunkier than your other marinades too, other than that Greek one. That Greek one was kind of chunky too because of the yogurt. But I'm just going to take it. I'm a little nervous. At how spicy. Oh, it's not spicy at all, really. Oh, yep, lying. Oh, gosh. Okay, it's spicy. Ooh, so Thai red chili peppers are sneaking up on me in here. It's good. Okay, it's okay. It's manageable. I might actually add another one, just for kicks. But that is the marinade for the Jamaican jerk caribbean. It could stand a little bit more heat. I can actually taste a little bit of that maple syrup in there, that caramelized color, that caramelized flavor. So now if you guys can see, the color of this is, again, that turkey gravy color, kind of that brownish color, a little golden yellow today a little bit. If I were to throw a lot more green onion in there, it would just get greener and greener and greener. I could add more oregano, fresh oregano in there, whatever I wanted to do. So that's it. That's 2 more marinades. That's 6 marinades this week so far. 5 days, 6 marinades in 5 days. Woo, we are on a roll. So that first day we did Mexican and Southeast Asian. That second day we did Greek and Italian. Today we did an Indian curry and a Jamaican jerk Caribbean marinade. So a couple days from now I'll do 2 more. Don't know what they'll be yet. Maybe it'll be al pastor, Nicole. Who knows? Yeah, that's all I have for today. Please, thank you for watching. Thanks for hopping on. Love it. Like it, share it, let people know that I'm doing these. I really like it when people are on so that I feel like I'm actually talking to people when I do this. I know a lot of people can't make it during the day, so they do end up watching it later. I greatly appreciate that. If you have friends and family members that would really like to watch these or would really have interest in watching these, share it with them, let them know. If they don't have Facebook, they can go on my website, jessicatiarena.com, and they're on there as well, and you don't have to have Facebook to see them. I also post them to my Instagram feed, and I upload them to my YouTube channel, Chef JT Arena. So thank you for joining me again today, guys. This was Jessica's Kitchen, Tips, Tricks, and Hacks. Marinade Magics, that formula is 1 part acid, 3 parts oil, plus seasonings and flavorings. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful afternoon. I'll see you in a couple days. Questions, comments, suggestions, please send them over. I love it. That gives me inspiration onto doing more of these for you guys. So have a great day. Be happy, be safe, wash your hands, and I'll talk to you guys later. Thank you. Have a great afternoon.